the false protector and the death drive. The next stage is uncovering the false protector. This is the part of you that emerged during collapse to keep you functioning. It mimics agency, but it is animated by what MPT calls inversed mirrored reflexive apathy, IMRA, a cold, looped logic that mirrors the narcissist's death drive. Vaknin calls this the shared fantasy's final act, when the narcissist has departed but their structures remain inside you, regulating your every movement, sabotaging joy, refusing real connection. Reintegration means unseating the false protector, not destroying it but metabolizing it, bringing it back into relational dialogue with the central ego. This is done not through willpower but through attuned witnessing. A therapist, a partner, or even your own emergent truth self must sit with the part and say, "I see you. I know what you did. You saved us. But you no longer need to protect me like this." This is the beginning of reattunement, the reemergence of the truth self. In MPIT, we refer to the truth self, the part of the ego that remained buried during collapse. It is not the original self, nor is it a healed self. It is the part of you that still speaks in fragments, still knows what was true but has been silenced by the cold echo of introjects. Vaknin hints at this when he speaks of the survivor's internal theater, where reality has been replaced by simulation. The truth self is the part of you that never bought the fantasy, but lacked the strength to resist it. Its reemergence is marked by conflict, sudden rage, unexpected tears, flashes of insight, repulsion toward the narcissist, even the return of hope. These are not mistakes. They are signs of the truth self clawing back authorship. Effective anchoring and the return of the gaze score teaches us that the only way to regulate right brain trauma is through effectively attuned presence. This is not just human contact. It is human contact that sees. In MPIT terms, this is the return of the gaze, but not the narcissistic gaze that idealized and annihilated. This is a truth gaze, one that sees you without consuming you. A partner, a therapist, even a safe friend who can bear witness without flinching, without managing, without denying. This gaze becomes the anchor that stabilizes the fractured ego. In its presence, symbolic looping slows. Introjects lose power. The nervous system softens, and the survivor begins to differentiate between their voice and the other's voice. This is the moment we call reseating the self. The horizontal and vertical axis MPIT holds a unique symbolic model. The survivor's collapse occurs along the horizontal axis, the axis of object seeking, relational fragmentation, shared fantasy, and affective confusion. But healing, true reintegration, comes through the vertical axis. This axis represents coherence, authorship, and individuation. It is not spiritual in a vague sense, but symbolic. To reclaim the vertical is to stand in the center of your own perception. Fairbairn, Shore, and Vaknin all imply this movement, from object dependence to self-possession, from simulation to self-authorship, from affective engulfment to symbolic orientation. The vertical is not a place. It is a position of gaze, to see without distortion, to perceive without borrowing, to feel without co-opting. This is reintegration, symbolic coherence, and narrative assembly. The final movement is assembling a coherent symbolic narrative. This does not mean just telling your story. It means building a symbolic field in which all your ego parts, the mute child, the redeemer, the false protector, the introject enforcer, are allowed to speak, to integrate, to no longer hold the steering wheel alone. Vaknin speaks of internal object constellations. MPIT gives them names. Fairbairn gives them structure. Shore gives them emotional form. Together they form a map of the survivor's internal world. Reintegration means walking through that world with the lights turned on. And here, in this final stage, survivors often experience what MPIT calls the regulated yes to life. The point at which life is no longer something to endure or analyze, but to engage with. Not recklessly, not grandiosely, but authentically, not the return of the self, but its first true emergence. Reintegration is not a neat arc. It is recursive, symbolic, effective, and deeply physical. The survivor will fail, relapse, remember, forget, and remember again, but every time the introject loses its grip, every time the truth self speaks and is heard, every time a gaze lands softly and is not ripped away, something returns. Not the person you were, but the person who now sees not just what happened, but who you truly are and without distortion. That is the reintegrated self. That is the long return.